My name's Danielle Prescott, and I am the programme lead for the MSc Football Coaching and Analysis at both the Etihad and Wembley campuses at UCFB. I want to give you a quick overview of the programme in terms of the type of content that you will be expected to be delivered to you, the way in which you will be assessed, and ultimately the types of careers that you can pursue after the successful completion of the programme. One thing that is massively important is understanding that as well as the academic content that is given to you, it's also important that that is delivered by the right staff. And one thing that I am particularly confident in is making sure that the staff across the programme are well equipped to give you the right information at the right level for the different disciplines that you may end up in as a result of finishing this programme. We have staff on the programme that are qualified in terms of being UEFA coaches. We have people that are qualified psychologists, so we'll look at that area of coaching and analysis from that perspective. And then for myself, I've got numerous years of academic experience working across 3 different higher education institutions. And then from a practitioner basis, I've worked across numerous Premiership, Championship clubs in both a performance analyst role and more recently and currently in a scouting and recruitment role for Manchester United. So in terms of the expertise that is on offer to you, we've got people that are more than equipped and reputable within these specific disciplines that can kind of give you the right footing, put all the content into actual context, and share their experiences with you. Because one thing we don't want to do is create the impression that whoever is at the front of the room is the person that has all the knowledge. That is not the case. And particularly at master's level, we will have people within your class that have got an array of experiences. And one thing that I am quite keen on doing is making sure that we encourage people to share those experiences, because they will have entirely different stories than what you or I may have. And it would be the wrong thing to do to say, please don't share that because you're not at the front of the room. That is not what we're about. We want to create a collaborative learning environment, and we want to make sure that every experience is captured and that we can ultimately take something from everybody's story, regardless of whether they're coaches, whether they're analysts, whether they're talent recruiters or data analysts. We want to encompass all of that information, and we want it to be useful and that we can put into the way in which we're going to learn throughout the programme, and then obviously ultimately perhaps that could filter through to the assessments as well. So that's just a quick overview in terms of our expectations potentially of the programme, and a little bit of a brief introduction to the level of expertise that we've got from the teaching staff that will be on this programme too. In terms of the course structure, we're traditionally split across 3 semesters. Semester 1 runs from October through to the end of January. Semester 2 is February to May, and then Semester 3 is June to October. So you can see from that the Master's programme is actually an entire calendar year. It's not like an undergraduate programme that runs from September to May, for example. It runs across an entire 12 months. Now, when you come onto this programme or you choose to be part of this Master's programme, you will have a choice to make, and that choice will be that you can either come onto this programme as a full-time student or you can opt for part-time. If you come onto the course as a full-time student, the breakdown that is in front of you now is essentially what you would do within each semester of the programme. If you opted to do the part-time route, the modules that you can see highlighted in red are what you would do in your first year. So in semester 1, you would do coaching from philosophy to practice and applied football match analysis in semester 1. Then in semester 2, you would do football statistics and data analysis. And that would be your first year. Going into your second year as the part-time student, you would then do the rest of the modules that are in black. You'll notice that, for example, football consultancy project in semester 1 is actually repeated in semester 2. It's not a repeated module, it just means that that module is split over 2 semesters, so it essentially runs from October to May. The same thing happens again with the research methods and dissertation. That runs across both semesters 2 and 3. So at a glance, it looks like your second year is heavily outweighed to your first year. But actually, when you can see that there are potentially 4 bullet points in there that actually are repeated, it's the outweighing is not necessarily as obvious as it might look at first glance. In terms of the decision that you make in regards to full-time versus part-time, when we are presented with timetables, at a glance it looks like there's not much difference, and from a contact time perspective there actually isn't. The real difference comes in the actual workload of the assessments for these modules. So as a typical example, you might have, as a full-time student, 3 or 4 assessments due in, say, a 2-month period. As a part-time student, you might only have 1 or 2 assessments due in that same period of time. So it really is the workload commitment that is the major difference between the full and the part-time choice that you would have to make. Obviously, everybody's got different circumstances and people do have commitments outside of the studies. And that is one thing that I would recommend that you think about in relation to which one would be more suited to those external commitments in your personal life. Because one thing that we can do is we can assist with that. If, for example, you might say, I'm going to go in full time, it might be too much, and you say, is there an opportunity to switch to part time? At that point, it's probably feasible that we'll be able to help you with that. One thing I would recommend is that don't do it the other way around. So don't sign up as part time and then think, oh, I wish I'd have done it full time, because we won't be able to make the transition of that because you've potentially missed modules that you should have covered already. So what I would say to do is obviously think about your personal circumstances, think about which type of commitment would be more fitting to you, so the full or the part-time, and then base your, obviously, choice off the back of that. In relation to contact time, there is a split between lectures and seminars, and what we've put in as kind of rule of thumb is that if you, for example, spend 4 hours a week in lectures, that same amount of time would then be expected to be present in seminars or visual learning environments, so accessing resources that we might have put on our Moodle page, which is what you'd have access to as your resource from home. So it's very much a 50-50 split between lectures and seminars. In terms of independent study, this is where the most of your time is spent. So as a master's student, you are not on site that often. So as a full-time student, your commitment on site would probably be a day and a half. As a part-time student, your commitment on site would be 1 day. We still expect a level of work being done away from the classroom, and we've anticipated that about 24 to 30 hours per week should be spent on independent study time. So that could be utilising the resources that we've put online, additional reading that's going to assist you within those lectures and seminars that you then attend, or we might have given you specific tasks to complete, which we would expect you to do within that time. We obviously are aware that people do have commitments away from the studies, but this is up to you to manage. And at master's level, we kind of expect that for the maturity level of the student that we should be having at master's level. But we do understand sometimes that there are struggles, and we are very approachable in terms of if there are any issues with the amount of time that you can commit to things like that. You just need to be very open and honest with us, and we will assist that as much as possible. There are a variety of assessments available across this programme, most of which are written assessments, presentations, and we actually have a Excel exam as well as part of this programme. The reason why we give you a varied type of assessment is pretty much to prepare you for the real world. So we don't want you to come in, complete the course, and then have a bog standard assessment across the board, because if that is the case, then we are failing, and we need to make sure that you're as prepared as possible to go into different settings and carry out different types of tasks. And that's why we've got an array of different types of assessments. So we want to make sure that obviously from an essay coursework perspective, you have got an adequate writing style that would be deemed appropriate and professional within specific elite football environments. From a presentation perspective, whether that's as a coach or as an analyst, you will probably be expected to present information back to some sort of cohort, whether that's players, whether that's management. And if we're not preparing you to practice those types of skills and the development of those skills, then again, we're failing. So we need to make sure that that is embedded within the assessments of this programme. And finally, the Excel exam is something that some students do get a little bit scared about because of the word exam, but you are coached very well in terms of the types of scenarios that will be presented to you in the exam and the way in which you can approach it and the way in which you can manipulate the data. And this is something that is vastly growing, especially within data analytics. So equipping you with those types of skills is something that we definitely need to do, and it kind of made sense to make sure that it's an assessment so that we can actually see how well you're doing within that area, or if there's areas that we can improve, and therefore we can embed that within the content, within the sessions. So we do want to cover the vast array of assessment types to prepare you better for the world, obviously, once you've graduated from this master's programme. Upon the successful completion of this programme, there are a number of different areas that you could pursue as potential career options. Some examples of that could be coaching at different levels across both the men and the women's game. You could be a performance analyst, again at different levels. You could go into the world of scouting. You could look at talent identification, football recruitment, data analytics, and obviously depending on the levels, there could even be some opportunities for football management that you could kind of tie in with the coaching element to it as well. Now, obviously, with any programme, you kind of have to be very proactive. So you have to make sure that in addition to this master's qualification, you are still seeking to develop yourself in other areas. So, for example, as a coach, you don't want to have just the masters. You want to be UAFB, UEFA qualified, because it will give you that advantage when you're going into that field to potentially beat someone else to that position. And that's where we want you to be. Similarly, within performance analysis, there are accrediting bodies that can give you additional experience and additional accreditation on top of your master's qualification. These will be things that kind of push your head slightly above the other competitors when you go for certain positions. And something that we are keen to do is obviously work with our enrichment and employability team at UCFB, who can kind of look at ways in which we can give you even more worth when you are coming out of UCFB as a master's graduate. So we want to make sure, obviously, that you're not just coming out with a master's degree, but you're also coming out with additional qualifications or additional experiences or additional accreditation. And we work all the time with the employability and enrichment team to make sure that if there are any courses that can kind of supplement your master's programme, there is a way in which we can present that to you in some form or another. Or we can advise you on what we would recommend you do in addition to your master's. So there are numerous ways in which you can kind of make yourself more employable and more appealing to certain clubs or organisations or clients. And that is ultimately what we want to get to. We want to create that all-round holistic master's graduate who is ready to go into the world of work with all the skills necessary to be successful within that sector and do the best job that they can do.